Night after night, a quiet battle plays out in bedrooms across the country. The house is still, the lamp goes dark, but the mind lights up like an entire hallway of lamps you can't switch off. Instead of settling, you find your attention pulled into small, insistent scenes, an old phone call you wish went differently, the list of things you must remember tomorrow, a neighbor's offhand remark that keeps replaying, a face you miss appearing again. This isn't ordinary sleeplessness, it's a crowded thinking habit that arrives precisely when the world asks you to rest. Over decades of caring, planning, and solving, we collect invisible clutter, unfinished conversations, old obligations, worries that never got answered. When darkness comes, those items tumble out of storage like boxes spilling across the floor, and suddenly there's nowhere calm to stand. You may try tea, breathing exercises, or a new pillow, but those are surface fixes for something deeper. Imagine if, instead of wrestling each thought, you could learn a gentle way to place most of them on a shelf until morning, acknowledge them, then give them temporary permission to wait. Imagine making a tiny space in your mind where quiet can actually land. This is not denial. It is a practiced kindness toward your own attention, the same kindness you once gave everyone else. If your thoughts have ever stolen your peace, hit like and hype now, because what I'm about to share might help you sleep better tonight, smile more tomorrow, and carry less into the mornings that matter. My name is Amira Dossin. I'm 68, and thinking used to feel like steadiness, a useful habit that helped me keep birthday lists, doctor's appointments, and family trips in order. After retirement, the calendar opened like fresh paper, yet my head began filling in ways I hadn't expected. The neighborhood slowed, the errands faded, the quiet came, and inside that quiet my thoughts set up camp. They weren't dramatic intruders, just small, persistent things, a conversation replayed with a new ending, an imagined apology I'd never sent, a checklist of calls I kept postponing, a minor worry about a test result I'd already scheduled. Nightfall felt less like rest and more like a crowded waiting room where every memory had a chair and a complaint. I tried chamomile, light stretching, and soft radio. Each trick helped once, sometimes twice, but the procession of thoughts returned with dusk like clockwork. One ordinary afternoon, while lining up jars on a shelf, arranging labels until they pleased me, a quiet realization landed. I could sort spices by scent and color without a second thought, but I hadn't learned how to sort what lived inside my skull. The rhythm of placing lids and straightening labels made me see how generous I'd been with my cupboards and how stingy I'd been with my own peace. My memories hadn't become treasures so much as unpaid bills, little items demanding attention even when I had no intention of paying them. I decided then to practice a different kind of housekeeping, to curate my thoughts with the same patience I used on my shelves. Not to ignore what mattered, but to choose deliberately which pieces deserved space tonight and which could politely wait until morning. That choice felt small and enormous at once, and it changed the tone of my evenings. Here's exactly how I simplified my thoughts, and began sleeping better, smiling more, and worrying less. Step 1. Treat your mind like your closet. One calm Saturday morning, as sunlight spilled across my bedroom floor, I began sorting through a box of scarves and jackets I hadn't worn in decades. Some still carried the faint scent of old perfume, others reminded me of seasons I'd already lived through. But as I folded one blouse after another, I noticed something strange. I was holding on to clothes for the same reason I held on to thoughts. Not because I needed them, but because they represented pieces of who I used to be. A scarf from my daughter's graduation. A pair of shoes from the job I left behind. Each memory wrapped around a belief, a fear, or a version of myself that no longer fit. That morning, I realized my closet was only half the clutter I lived with. The rest was in my mind. So, I decided to declutter it, gently. Every time a thought appeared, I'd pause and imagine taking it off a hanger. Then I'd ask, does this still fit who I am now? If it didn't bring peace or purpose, I let it go. I began to see that my thoughts had seasons too, some meant for growth, others meant to be retired. To make it practical, I created 4 categories: keep, alter, store, and donate. Keep was for thoughts that nurtured me, gratitude, curiosity, affection, patience. Alter held those that carried a truth but needed softening, like transforming I failed into I learned. Store was for realistic worries that didn't need my energy tonight but would need action tomorrow. And donate, that was the most sacred pile. It held the thoughts stitched from guilt, resentment, or fear. Thoughts that had protected me once, but now only weighed me down. I built a nightly ritual around it. Every evening, I'd sit by a small lamp and write down the thoughts that echoed the loudest. I'd read them out loud and place each one in its zone. For altar, I rewrote the story using compassion instead of judgment. For store, I slipped the note into a jar labeled Tomorrow's Concerns. For donate, I folded the paper, whispered "Thank you for serving me," and dropped it in a box destined for recycling, a quiet ceremony of release. Over time, something beautiful happened. I began sleeping through the night. My dreams grew softer. Conversations with friends became lighter because I wasn't recycling the same old complaints. I even noticed I started smiling for no clear reason, just from feeling lighter inside. It's not that the thoughts stopped coming, it's that I'd learned where to put them. Some thoughts still resist, like an old coat you can't quite throw away. For those, I give myself grace. I acknowledge their story, name what they taught me, and slowly, lovingly, let them go. This small act, this mental decluttering, changed more than my sleep. It changed how I lived. My mind became a closet I actually wanted to open. Step 2. Create a nightly thought drop ritual. It began one restless night when I found myself staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., counting not sheep but worries. My mind was loud, replaying conversations, rewriting old mistakes, remembering things I didn't even need to recall. I tried breathing exercises, soft music, even herbal tea. Nothing worked. Then one evening, while sorting through a drawer, I found a small notepad and thought, what if I gave my thoughts somewhere to go besides my head? That's how my nightly thought drop began. Now, every night before bed, I sit at my little desk with a cup of chamomile tea. I dim the lights and let my pen move freely across the page. No filters, no neat handwriting, just the pure, messy truth of what's been sitting in my head all day. Sometimes it's a grocery list tangled with guilt. Other nights, it's fears about the future or small frustrations that grew too heavy to carry into sleep. I don't censor or analyze, I simply release. When I'm done, I read the words softly once, as if acknowledging them out loud helps them leave my mind. Then I tear the page gently, a symbolic gesture that says, I'll pick this up tomorrow if it still matters. Most of the time, it doesn't. It's like unpacking your mental luggage after a long trip. You can finally rest because the weight is no longer pressing against your chest. Over weeks, the ritual took on texture and rhythm. I started lighting a lavender candle while writing. I kept a small ceramic bowl beside me to hold the torn pieces, almost like offering my thoughts to quietness itself. Some nights I even play faint instrumental music, soft piano, or the sound of rain, letting it remind my brain that it's time to slow down. What surprised me most was how physical the release felt. My shoulders would drop. My breathing deepened. My bed began to feel like a refuge again, not a courtroom for every decision I'd ever made. Within 2 weeks, I was falling asleep faster, waking up with fewer anxious loops, and feeling lighter before my first cup of coffee. Friends started asking what had changed, and when I told them, many began doing it too. It turns out I wasn't alone. Across the country, seniors are joining what's now called the 2025 Mind Decluttering movement. From Minnesota to Florida, older adults are using simple writing rituals to improve their rest, emotional balance, and even blood pressure. Experts say writing before bed signals the brain that it's safe to rest, that nothing urgent is waiting to be solved at midnight. For me, it's more than a sleep trick. It's an act of kindness toward myself. Each night, when I tear that paper and whisper, "You can rest now," I feel as if I'm tucking my own thoughts into bed. And slowly, gently, they've learned to sleep too. Step 3. Replace control with curiosity. For most of my life, I mistook control for peace. If I could plan it, predict it, or prepare for it, I thought I'd be safe. I managed everything. My calendar, my children's schedules, even my emotions. But after retirement, when life slowed down and there was less to manage, I realized something unsettling. I wasn't at peace without problems to solve. My mind had become addicted to control. When I couldn't control the outside world, I tried to control my thoughts, replaying scenarios, imagining outcomes, preparing for troubles that never arrived. It was exhausting. Then one quiet afternoon, while pruning my garden, I had a simple but profound thought. Maybe I don't need to control everything. Maybe I just need to get curious. The next time I caught myself spiraling, I asked, am I solving a problem or just rehearsing fear? That single question changed my nights, my conversations, even how I breathed. I began treating my thoughts like visitors instead of intruders. When a worry knocked, I'd say, come in, tell me what you're here for, instead of pretending not to hear it. Some thoughts came to warn me of something real, like forgetting a doctor's appointment. Others were echoes of old fears dressed as logic. Curiosity helped me tell the difference. The more I asked, why this thought now, the less power my mind's noise had over me. To make it practical, I created a small ritual. Every morning, I'd sit by my window with tea and write one curious question about whatever was on my mind. If I felt anxious about my health, I'd write, what is this feeling trying to teach me? If I felt regret, I'd ask, what would compassion say instead? These questions didn't erase the thoughts, they softened them. They turned judgment into dialogue. Curiosity also slowed me down in ways control never could. Instead of racing to fix a situation, I learned to observe it. When a friend canceled lunch, I noticed how quickly my mind jumped to assumptions. Did I say something wrong? Am I being forgotten? Then I'd smile and ask, or could she just be tired? That small shift turned self-doubt into understanding. Science now supports what I stumbled upon. Many wellness groups in the US, especially among seniors, are embracing mindful curiosity practices as part of the larger 2025 mental wellness movement. The approach trains the brain to interpret uncertainty as exploration, not threat. Therapists describe it as replacing mental tension with gentle awareness, a kind of inner permission to not have all the answers. And that's the freedom I found. I stopped trying to silence my thoughts. I listened, questioned, and learned from them. I discovered that curiosity isn't weakness, it's wisdom in softer clothing. The less I fought my thoughts, the more they revealed their lessons. Control was heavy. Curiosity, it turns out, is light. Step 4. Let expired thoughts go. One day while cleaning out my kitchen pantry, I caught myself studying expiration dates on old cans and spice jars. Some had faded labels from the early 2000s, a jar of nutmeg, a tin of soup, a dusty box of tea bags. I laughed out loud, wondering why I still kept things I hadn't used in years. But the laughter faded when another thought crossed my mind. What about the things in my head that have expired? Beliefs, regrets, comparisons. Some of those had been sitting in my mental cupboard since the 1980s, untouched but still taking up space. That's when I began doing what I now call a mental expiry check. Each week, I'd set aside time to sit quietly and bring old thoughts to light, ones that often arrived without invitation. A high school mistake I still cringed about. A long ago argument I kept replaying. Even little rules I'd absorbed from my upbringing, like, you must stay busy to have value. I'd write them down and ask myself one question: does this thought still add peace or purpose to my life? If it didn't, I'd mentally stamp it expired and let it go. It's strange how liberating it feels to name a thought as outdated. Instead of feeling guilty for thinking it, you start realizing it simply doesn't serve the current version of you. Just like spoiled food can't nourish you, expired beliefs can't support who you've become. I started imagining myself tossing those thoughts into a mental recycling bin, whispering, "Thank you for what you once gave me, but I don't need you anymore." This small exercise soon became a ritual I looked forward to. On Sunday evenings, I'd pour a cup of herbal tea, light a candle, and do my thought audit. Sometimes, I'd even find thoughts that had gone stale, like I should be doing more, or it's too late to start over. Labeling them expired gave me permission to replace them with something fresher, kinder, and true to who I am now. I learned that thoughts, like groceries, have shelf lives. They're meant to sustain us for a time, not forever. Some ideas served me well when I was raising kids or working full-time. But now, in this slower season, I need new ones, softer, more forgiving, more spacious. Interestingly, This isn't just a personal habit. Cognitive therapists across the US are now recommending mental expiry checks as part of what's being called the emotional decluttering movement of 2025. It's designed especially for older adults whose minds have stored decades of unexamined thoughts. Research shows that consciously identifying and releasing outdated thinking patterns reduces emotional fatigue, improves focus, and even helps regulate sleep cycles. Since starting this practice, my inner world feels lighter, like a home that finally breathes. When I catch an expired thought trying to sneak back in, I smile and say, "Sorry, your time's up." It's not harsh, it's healing. Because peace, like food, tastes best when it's fresh. Step 5. Set quiet hours for the mind. It started with a small act of rebellion. One evening, I looked at the clock, saw it was 8:03 p.m., and told myself, no more thinking tonight. Not in a dismissive way, but as a gentle boundary. I'd realized my mind didn't know when to close shop. Long after dinner, it kept running inventory, grocery lists, family updates, global worries, what I should have said in a conversation 3 days ago. I was physically in my living room, but mentally still at work, still in yesterday or tomorrow. So I made a promise to myself, after 8 o'clock, no problem solving, no mental to-do lists, no overanalyzing. My mind deserved office hours too. At first, it felt strange, almost irresponsible. I worried that if I stopped thinking, I'd forget something important. But within a few days, I realized how hungry I was for quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't just silence, but softness, where your thoughts stop knocking and you can finally exhale. I began calling these my quiet hours. From 8 p.m. onward, I created a different rhythm. I dimmed the lights, turned off notifications, and played slow, instrumental music, something gentle, like acoustic guitar or nature sounds. Some nights, I'd sit with a cup of tea and simply watch the light fade through the curtains. Other nights, I'd write down 3 small gratitudes, not grand, just simple. The way my neighbor's dog wagged its tail, the taste of lemon in my water, the comfort of my favorite robe. The goal wasn't to do anything, it was to stop doing. I treated these hours as sacred, a signal to my brain that the world could wait until morning. And over time, it began to listen. My sleep deepened. My shoulders relaxed. I woke up feeling clear instead of clouded. Soon, friends started noticing the difference. My daughter said, "Mom, you sound lighter." And I was. Because I discovered that rest isn't just about what you stop doing with your body, it's what you stop doing with your mind. Interestingly, this small habit fits perfectly into what experts now call the digital dusk wellness trend. Across the US, older adults are reclaiming their evenings by disconnecting from screens, turning down cognitive noise, and treating the hours before bed as emotional recovery time. Therapists say this helps the brain switch from problem-solving mode to repair mode, which improves both memory and mood. My quiet hours aren't rigid. Sometimes they start earlier, sometimes later, but the intention stays. After 8 p.m., I'm off duty. No news scrolls, no email checks, no what-if marathons. Just peace. The house hums softly. The air feels slower. I've come to realize that the mind, like a good friend, speaks most kindly when you give it time to rest. And every night I do, it thanks me, in the language of deep, uninterrupted sleep. Step 6. Practice graceful forgetting. I stopped calling it forgetfulness. I started calling it freedom. For decades, I panicked when my mind faltered. A name vanished mid-conversation. I walked into a room and forgot why. I misplaced a list or misremembered a date. Each lapse felt like proof I was losing something: sharpness, control, even a piece of myself. I carried anxiety like an extra coat, tightening it every time a memory slipped away. But one quiet morning, as I sipped chamomile tea and watched sunlight stretch across my living room, I realized something profound. My mind wasn't failing me. It was reorganizing. It was gently sweeping away the clutter it no longer needed to carry, silently creating space for what truly matters. I started to practice what I now call graceful forgetting. When a thought escapes me, instead of panicking, I pause and say, "My mind is making room for peace." This simple act transformed my evenings and my inner landscape. I imagine each forgotten item like a leaf floating down a calm stream, and if it's meant to return, it will drift back when the time is right. The rest? I let it go without guilt. To make it real, I created a small ritual. Each night, I keep a grace log beside my bed. I write down one thing I forgot that day and one memory that brought me joy. A laugh, a kind word, a small victory, or even the way the evening light touched the walls. Reading these lists reminds me that life is not about storing every trivial detail, but about honoring what nourishes me and releasing what weighs me down. I've learned that forgetting isn't weakness, it's a subtle form of emotional decluttering. My mind is choosing what deserves space, letting go of old regrets, worn-out fears, and unnecessary comparisons. Sometimes, I still stumble, a name, a date, a recipe, but now I smile instead of panicking. I laugh at my mind's gentle pruning, realizing it's an act of care, not loss. Therapists and cognitive researchers now say that allowing the mind to release irrelevant information is vital for mental wellness in seniors. Studies show that deliberately reframing forgetfulness as freedom reduces anxiety, improves focus, and even supports deeper sleep. I see it in my own life. Mornings feel lighter, conversations are calmer, and I enjoy each moment without the burden of trying to remember everything. Forgetfulness, I've discovered, is not a flaw, it's a blessing disguised as imperfection. It's my mind's quiet way of reminding me to choose presence over perfection, peace over panic, and joy over unnecessary mental clutter. By practicing graceful forgetting, I've finally given myself permission to breathe, to smile, and to embrace the life I'm living now, unburdened, gentle, and free. Step 7. Choose joy over order. For decades, I thought peace meant keeping every thought perfectly organized. Every worry categorized, every memory filed, every emotion labeled. I believed that if I could control every thought, I could control my happiness, my calm, my nights of restful sleep. But one morning, while sipping coffee and watching sunlight spill across my kitchen table, I noticed something surprising. My thoughts were still moving, still messy, yet I felt a flutter of joy. That's when it hit me, peace doesn't come from perfect order. It comes from the way you treat yourself while your mind wanders. I began to welcome my thoughts like friendly guests. When an old worry surfaced, I greeted it softly, "Hello, friend. I see you. You're welcome, but you don't need to stay long." When a memory repeated itself, I smiled, "Thank you for visiting, but your story is safe in my heart." Each time I practiced this, the mental clutter that once felt heavy became lighter. I no longer chased or judged my wandering mind. Instead, I offered it compassion. This tiny shift, from control to kindness, transformed my evenings, my mornings, and the quiet moments in between. I also discovered the importance of choosing joy over rigidity. I began savoring small pleasures without guilt. The warmth of a teacup, the rhythm of a favorite song, a quiet laugh at a silly memory, the gentle stretch of sunlight on my hands, or the soft breeze brushing my face as I sat on my porch. I allowed my mind to drift freely, knowing that wandering thoughts weren't failures or flaws. I imagined each thought as a small bird landing on my shoulder, welcome, but free to leave whenever it chooses. Over time, this practice became a balm for my mind. The tension of trying to keep everything orderly melted away, leaving space for gentle presence. Experts now confirm what I experienced. Emotional flexibility, letting thoughts pass without judgment, is vital for seniors' mental and emotional well-being. Those who embrace this approach experience lower stress, deeper sleep, better focus, and a greater sense of presence. I felt it in my own life. Calmer mornings, lighter conversations, and a gentler, more patient way of being. True mental simplicity isn't about control, perfection, or forcing order. It's about kindness, patience, joy, and choosing what nourishes the heart over what impresses the mind. Now, when my thoughts wander, I simply smile and let them pass like leaves drifting on a quiet stream or clouds moving across a wide sky. I greet each one, thank it for its lesson or presence, and let it go without clinging or judgment. In doing this, I finally discovered the freedom I had been seeking, the joy of being fully present, free from the need for perfect order, and at peace with the natural flow of life, embracing messes as part of the beauty of being alive, and allowing my mind and heart to settle into calm, radiant simplicity. At 68, I've come to understand something remarkable. Peace isn't something you stumble upon by chance. It's something you create intentionally, moment by moment, one gentle thought at a time. For years, I thought my mind had to be perfectly quiet to rest, to smile, or to feel calm. But the truth I discovered is far more freeing. Simplifying my thoughts didn't require forcing them into silence, nor did it demand that I forget the lessons, the joys, or even the sorrows of my life. It simply asked me to treat each thought with kindness, decide what nourishes me, and let the rest go with grace. I close my eyes softly and feel the difference. The thoughts that once raced through my mind, stealing sleep and filling me with unnecessary worry, now drift like clouds on a calm day. Each night, as I pause to reflect, I notice how much lighter my mind feels, how much more space there is for gratitude, curiosity, and simple joy. I remember small moments I used to overlook, the gentle stretch of morning sunlight across my living room, the laughter of a neighbor, the quiet satisfaction of finishing a small task without anxiety. These moments, once drowned out by mental clutter, now shine brightly because I have given myself permission to release what no longer serves me. Creating this lighter mind also transformed how I connect with others. Conversations feel more present, more patient. I'm no longer carrying the weight of borrowed worries or outdated regrets into each interaction. When friends call or family visit, I can truly listen, laugh, and share without the burden of unnecessary thoughts. Even errands, phone calls, or the simplest daily routines become more peaceful because my mind isn't crowded with the noise of everything I should be thinking about. Simplifying thoughts isn't a one-time act, it's a daily practice. Some mornings I still notice an old worry trying to sneak in, and I gently greet it, "Hello, friend. I see you, but you don't need to stay long." This simple acknowledgement, this tiny pause, reminds me that I am in control not by force, but by mindful kindness and attention. Over time, this practice has woven itself into my life, shaping calmer evenings, lighter mornings, and a deeper sense of freedom I never imagined possible. Simplifying my thoughts didn't make me forgetful. It made me free. If this story brought you a little calm, share it with someone who needs peace tonight. Tap hype, hit like, and subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors, where every week, we learn to grow lighter, wiser, and freer together. By practicing gentle release, kindness, and thoughtful presence, we can all create a mind that supports rest, joy, and connection, no matter our age. Each day offers a new opportunity to let go, embrace peace, and celebrate the beauty of a lighter, freer mind.